Alcohol. If you asked most people to name the most dangerous drug on earth, they would probably say fentanyl, heroin, or meth. But the drug that kills the most people is not hidden in a cartel lab. It is on restaurant menus, in supermarkets, at weddings, on airplanes, and inside almost every celebration humans have invented. It is alcohol. Every year, alcohol kills approximately 2.6 million people. No illegal drug on this list comes close in raw numbers. Alcohol is not new. Evidence of fermented drinks has been found in Neolithic pottery from Jiahu in China, dating back to around 7000 BC. In early agricultural societies, beer was sometimes safer than dirty water because boiling and fermentation reduced contamination. So alcohol did not enter civilization as a poison. It entered as food, medicine, ritual, and survival. That is what makes it so hard to fight. It became part of human culture before governments, before modern medicine, before anyone understood addiction. Short term, it blurs vision, slows reaction time, destroys coordination, and turns ordinary people into dangerous drivers. Long term, it damages the liver, heart, brain, and increases the risk of several cancers. And the reason it stays everywhere is brutally simple. It is legal, socially accepted, and profitable. In 2022 to 2023, the UK government alone collected £12.4 billion from alcohol sales. The world's deadliest drug does not need a dealer. It has a license because it hides in plain sight. Nicotine. Nicotine is not the chemical that turns lungs black. It is the chemical that makes people keep doing the thing that turns their lungs black. That is why tobacco is so dangerous. Worldwide, tobacco kills more than 8 million people every year. Over 7 million die from direct use, and around 1.2 million die from secondhand smoke. In the United States alone, cigarettes kill about 480,000 people per year. That is roughly 1,300 people every day. Nicotine reaches the brain within seconds of inhalation. It triggers dopamine, the reward chemical that tells the brain, do that again. But the effect fades quickly. Then the brain asks for another hit, then another. Eventually, the brain starts treating nicotine as normal. Without it, the user feels anxious, irritable, unfocused, and desperate to smoke again. That is why quitting feels so humiliating for many smokers. It is not a weak personality. It is a drug rewiring the reward system in real time. More than 95% of unaided quit attempts fail within 6 months. And the industry knew exactly what it was selling. For decades, tobacco companies targeted teenagers because long-term addiction usually begins before age 25. Cigarette smoke contains thousands of chemicals, many far more physically harmful than nicotine itself. But nicotine is the hook. It is the tiny chemical that convinces someone to inhale the rest for decades. MDMA. MDMA does not look terrifying at first. It is not associated with dirty needles or people collapsing in alleyways. It is associated with nightclubs, music festivals, friendship, hugging strangers, and feeling like the whole world suddenly loves you. That friendly image is exactly why people underestimate it. MDMA was first synthesized in 1912 by the German pharmaceutical company Merck and then largely forgotten. In the 1970s, chemist Alexander Shulgin helped bring it back into psychotherapy circles, where it was used to create emotional openness. By the 1980s, it had moved from therapy rooms into clubs. The drug floods the brain with serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine at the same time. Serotonin creates the famous warmth, empathy, touch sensitivity, and emotional connection. But when the drug fades, the brain can crash hard. The next day can bring low mood, exhaustion, irritability, and a hollow feeling that is the opposite of the high. The most dangerous part is not always addiction. It is temperature and water. MDMA can stop the body from regulating heat properly. In a packed, hot club, dancing for hours, core temperature can rise high enough to cause organ failure. At the same time, MDMA can make the body retain water. Some users try to stay safe by drinking huge amounts and end up diluting the sodium in their blood to life-threatening levels. The drug that makes people feel connected can kill them in the middle of a crowd. Ketamine. Ketamine is strange because medically, it can be incredibly useful. It was first synthesized in 1962 and approved as an anesthetic in 1970. Unlike many anesthetics, it usually does not suppress breathing or lower blood pressure. That made it valuable in battlefield medicine, emergency situations, veterinary care, and places without advanced monitoring equipment. But outside medical supervision, ketamine becomes something very different. On the street, it is known as Special K. At lower doses, users feel detached from their bodies. Sound, time, movement, and identity can start to feel unreal. At higher doses, they can fall into what users call a K-hole, conscious but disconnected from reality, unable to move normally, and unable to communicate clearly. That alone is dangerous. But ketamine has one especially disturbing effect. It removes pain. A person can fall, smash a bone, cut themselves, or suffer a serious injury and not understand how badly hurt they are until the drug wears off. Then there is the bladder damage. Heavy long-term use can cause ketamine bladder syndrome, a condition where the bladder and urinary tract become inflamed and damaged. Between 20 and 30% of frequent users develop bladder complaints. In severe cases, the bladder shrinks, hardens, and becomes so damaged that surgical removal is the only option. Ketamine can also cause amnesia, which is why it has sometimes been used by predators to make victims unable to remember what happened. A drug designed to disconnect people from pain can also disconnect them from reality itself. Cocaine. Cocaine has always had a glamorous mask. For thousands of years, people in South America chewed coca leaves for mild stimulation. But once the pure chemical was isolated in the 1850s, the world found a way to turn a traditional plant into a much more dangerous drug. By the late 1800s, cocaine was appearing in medicines, tonics, wines, and even early versions of Coca-Cola. Sigmund Freud praised it. Society treated it like a miracle. The danger is what it does to the reward system. Normally, dopamine is released and then cleared away. Cocaine blocks that cleanup process. Dopamine piles up in the brain, creating a fast, intense euphoria. But the high is short, often only 15 to 30 minutes. When it ends, dopamine falls below baseline. The user does not just return to normal, they drop below normal, into anxiety, depletion, and craving. Physically, cocaine is an attack on the cardiovascular system. It raises heart rate, increases blood pressure, and constricts blood vessels. Heart attacks, strokes, and cardiac arrest can happen even in young people who look healthy. Long-term snorting can destroy nasal tissue. Crack cocaine, the cheaper smoked form, devastated American cities in the 1980s and became one of the defining drug crises of the 20th century. Today, cocaine remains the second most commonly used illegal drug in the world, with roughly 21 million users estimated in 2021. Behind the party image is a supply chain run by some of the most violent criminal organizations on Earth. Hydrocodone. Hydrocodone is terrifying because it did not arrive in most people's lives through a street dealer. It arrived through a doctor, a pharmacy, and a normal-looking orange pill bottle. It was first synthesized in Germany in 1920, and in the United States, it eventually became the single most prescribed drug in the country. At its peak in 2011, American doctors wrote 136 million prescriptions for hydrocodone-containing products in 1 year. The drug works like other opioids. It binds to receptors in the brain and spinal cord, blocking pain while also releasing dopamine. For someone after surgery, dental work, or a serious injury, that relief can be real and necessary. But the same mechanism that kills pain can also create a high, and repeated use can build tolerance. The body starts needing more to feel the same effect. The nightmare often begins when the prescription ends, but the craving does not. A person who started with legitimate pain can suddenly find themselves physically dependent. Withdrawal, anxiety, and cravings push them to seek more. Hydrocodone becomes especially dangerous when mixed with alcohol, benzodiazepines, or other opioids. These combinations can slow breathing until it stops. In 2014, the DEA tightened restrictions by moving hydrocodone combination products from Schedule 3 to Schedule 2. Prescriptions dropped, but addiction does not disappear just because access changes. Many people who were already dependent move towards stronger or cheaper opioids. Hydrocodone remains one of the most diverted prescription drugs in the United States. Morphine. Morphine is one of the most important painkillers in human history, and that is exactly what makes it dangerous. It was first isolated from the opium poppy in 1804 by German pharmacist Friedrich Serturner, who named it after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams. That name sounds peaceful. The history that followed was not. By the American Civil War, morphine was the painkiller soldiers received for gunshot wounds, amputations, and battlefield surgeries. It saved people from unbearable agony. But many soldiers came home addicted. The same pattern repeated in later wars: mass injury, mass pain relief, and then mass dependence. Morphine binds to opioid receptors in the brain and spinal cord. It blocks pain, creates sedation, and can produce euphoria. Used correctly in hospitals, cancer care, surgery, and palliative medicine, it is invaluable. It is even on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. But regular use creates tolerance. The body adapts, then physical dependence follows. Withdrawal can bring sweating, cramps, insomnia, vomiting, and deep bone pain that lasts for days. For someone dependent, the drug stops being about getting high and becomes about avoiding the suffering of not having it. The darkest part of morphine's story is what came next. Doctors and chemists wanted something just as powerful, but supposedly less addictive. That search produced heroin. Morphine was not just dangerous on its own, it opened the door to something even worse. Heroin. Heroin sounds like something born in the underworld, but it came from a pharmaceutical company. In